I decided tonight that I'd read something from my thesis. So this is sort of my thesis defense. So I expect you guys to be paying attention. I'm expecting some questions because I didn't get a thesis defense and I'm not happy about it. So this is my opportunity. So you guys, you professors out there, you better have some questions for me when I'm done. Is that clear? Pay attention. All right. The story is called Doing a Dime at the Double Nickel. And I chose to read it tonight because none of you have heard it, except maybe Ann Cummins, and that was over 20 years ago. It's an old story. And it's funny. I look, when you've got a big body of work that spans a lot of time, how you view it really changes. And I think when I wrote this story, I identified with the protagonist and the guitarist in the thrash band. And they were really the main characters for me. And I think now, 20-something years later, I really identify with the Sheriff's Department detective in this story. So, yeah, stuff changes. Okay. Doing a dime at the double nickel. Other people came here in chains. This thought occurred to Star as she watched the man who had just pulled up out front of the Double Nickel Cafe unfold himself from his car. Other people besides Africans, that is. Stop! She changed the angle of her wrist without looking. When she did glance down, she saw that the first brown trickle of coffee was running down the side of Detective Robert Blueleg's white coffee cup. Sorry, I was thinking. Try doing it with your brain instead of your eyes next time. That works better. Then you can think and pour coffee at the same time. Otherwise, you'll end up paying for my dry cleaning out of your tip jar. Star looked at him. His face is expressionless. The only sign that he is laughing at her is the speed at which the ever-present toothpick dances in his mouth. Fuck you, you hang-around-the-fort Injun who screws my mother and buys only the best wash and wear. Star's mother's voice comes floating through the pass-through window from the kitchen. Jesus H. Christ, Star. Did I just hear what I thought I heard coming out of your pretty little mouth? Where did you learn to talk to paying customers like that? Star rolls her eyes at the sound of her mother calling her name. Robert winks at her and raises his voice so that it carries into the kitchen. Susan was just complaining about living in a multicultural household and still having a man around who dresses like white trash. For years she had liked the name Star, thought it made her different, unique. Recently she had realized that every girl that had been born between 1967 and 1972 to anyone that had been involved in the counterculture was also named Star or Sunshine. She was glad that her mom had the foresight to give her a normal first name also. When she announced the switch, nobody seemed to think a whole lot about it. The two people she had the most trouble with were the ones she least had expected it from. The first was her mother, who could not seem to make the name change. The other was herself. She could call herself Susan, but she could not think of herself as Susan. Star was still not Susan as far as Star was concerned. Her attention shifts back to the man out front. He is out of his car. His door is still open, and he stands behind it, running his comb through a haystack-looking mess of brown hair that appears not to notice the effects of the comb. He is tall and thin, and his car adds to his apparent height. The car is dark and wide and sits low on the ground on sprung springs and worn-out shocks. Make is big, year is old, thinks Star. He has one of those thin, angular faces which makes Star think of ferrets, and a body to match, all neck and wrists where his faded Oxford cloth shirt ends. Englishmen were brought to the colonies of Georgia and Florida to work off their debts to the king. They started in Georgia, and 200 years later, and 80 years too late, they made it all the way to the promised land. Promised to somebody else, that is. Once again, they found themselves unwanted, except when their sweat could be had for less than the price of the food it took to sustain it. They lived in prisons called tent cities. They were called Okie instead of convict. The words were different, but the meaning was the same. Their lot in life remained unchanged. They died of the same things in the tent cities of California that their ancestors had died from in the swamps of Georgia 200 years before. Star looks out the window of the double nickel at this tall man in his short, sunken car, as she often does when these dirty, worn-out old cars and trucks pull up with their expired southern plates, each looking like it had traveled the same million miles of bad road as the one before it. The tall man stuck the comb in his back pocket and put his black plastic sunglasses back on his face as he walked to the door of the cafe. As he entered, Star greeted him. "Good afternoon. Coffee?" "Please, cream and sugar." Even without the car, the man is still very tall and thin. He sits at the counter, 2 stools down from Detective Bluelegs, and nods to him. Robert smiles around his toothpick and nods back. Star brings the tall man a cup and a saucer, cream and sugar. She turns and picks up the coffee and a menu. "Menu?" "Thank you." She pours his coffee. "More coffee, Robert?" "Please." As she pours Robert coffee, the tall man takes a long sip from his cup and then rolls his neck and shoulders. "Long trip?" Robert asks. "Left Shreveport 2 weeks ago. Just kind of poking along, seeing some country. Time to get out of there for a bit. Getting too hot. Needed to see some new places." "Hot?" Robert asks. Star notices that the tall man has a pierced ear. "Yeah, hot and humid. This time of year down there, you start to feel all closed in like. Figured I'd come out here, see the West, maybe climb some of them mountains, like in the beer commercials. You know they even sell Coors in Shreveport now?" "No shit," says Robert, pretending to be surprised. "Fucking fascist beer." "Excuse me, miss?" "I said fucking fascist beer. Adolf Coors and his family, bunch of fucking fascists. You shouldn't buy that shit. Puts money right in their pockets." I never did see the big draw myself. Tried it once because it was supposed to be the new thing from the West and all, you know. Ask me, it tastes like watered-down piss. The tall man opens his menu but looks at Star. "What's good?" he asks. Star turns around. "What's good today, Mom?" "Everything." The tall man grins. "I'll have a BLT and a grilled ham and cheese. Tell your ma put 'em on the same plate. No fries." "What do you do in Shreveport?" Robert asks. "I'm a musician. Play guitar in a band." "Country?" "Hardcore. Thrash. You know, like real fast punk rock. How about you?" Star's ears perk up. Robert looks a little surprised. "Me? Oh, I'm a cop. I mean peace officer. Detective Robert Bluelegs, Clear Creek County Sheriff's Department." Now the tall man looks a little surprised, as surprised as a man can look when you can't see his eyes. He recovers quickly. "James Robert Willett, glad to meet you. People call me J-Bob. I never met an Indian before." "Star, waitress in my mom's double nickel." "Didn't figure you for a cop. Must be the suit or something. Thought you were a salesman or something like that. Of course, you thought I was some country western cheeseball banjo player, so what the hell?" He shrugs his shoulders. "Most people don't even know there are hardcore bands in the South." Robert grins. Star sees an opening. "Most people don't know detectives who dress like used car salesmen." "Well, then how should I dress? Miami Vice?" "How about the rest of the people you work with who don't have to wear uniforms?" "No, I don't like the cowboy Indian cop look. Too confusing. I might forget who I am." "Fuck it. People always want to put you in a little box, claim you to what they think you should be, how you should look. I don't need a pink mohawk to play music. You don't need to look like the child of a flower child to be named Star. He don't need to have a big hat and pointy boots to be the sheriff. Actually, my name's Susan." "So what?" So, I don't know. My name is Susan." "You're no different than you were a few seconds ago when your name was Star." "That's what I'm saying. How you look, how you're called, it don't change who you are. You could call yourself Sunshine and be the darkest, most hateful person in the world. Clowns always look happy, but I've heard they're the saddest people you'll ever meet." "Star, your order's up." She turns and gets J-Bob his food. "More coffee?" Thanks. I'd better go. My lunch is over. Time to get to work. Nice talking to you, J-Bob. See you later, Susan. Robert gets up and goes into the kitchen. He says a few words to Star's mother and then heads out to his car. He pauses at the door. Hey, Star? Yeah? I like looking like a used car salesman. Yeah. See what happens next time you and Mom want to go out in public with me. He grins, nods his head, and is gone with a wave of the toothpick. Star clears his plate and starts to wipe the counter. After a moment, she says, "This name thing of mine. People don't really call me J-Bob. What do they call you? Why do you say it was J-Bob?" Just for shits and grins. When you're from the South, people always expect you to have a stupid name. Actually, people call me James. Do you really play hardcore? Yup. Why is this place called the Double Nickel? Lots of truck drivers stop here. That's what they call a 55-mile-an-hour speed limit, the Double Nickel. My mom liked the sound of it. The place used to be called the Bluebird before she got it. There's this song I once heard called Doing a Dime at the Double Nickel. I always wondered what it meant. Maybe it's about going slow in the fast lane. Or maybe it's about going nuts from having to drive 55 for 10 years. Yeah, maybe. I like that. Never thought of it. Yeah, I like that a lot better. It was by the Minutemen, I think. He starts to hum. Star smiles to herself as she wipes the counter. James finishes his meal. More coffee? No, thanks. But say, I was wondering, do you think it would be all right if I pulled around back and crashed for a while? I kind of feel like a nap. Yeah, I guess so. I'm leaving in a bit, but I'll tell my mom you're back there. Thanks. And thanks for the double nickel. He stands up and pulls out his wallet, taking out a $10 bill and slides it next to his plate. There's a dime for your double nickel. You don't have to do that. I know, but I'm gonna anyway. It's only money. Thanks, James. Have a good nap. He smiles, showing off bad teeth. See you later, Star. It's Susan. Are you sure? Nope. He laughs and gives Star a nod as he pushes out the door. Star leaves the Double Nickel in the late afternoon when the evening waitress arrives. She is home when Robert Bluelegs comes to pick up her mom. She is making dinner when Robert discovers James dead in his car behind the Double Nickel. A burnt bent spoon, a syringe, and an empty dime bag on the seat next to him. Star wishes he had just gone on his way instead of dying behind the Double Nickel. In death, he looms much larger in her thoughts than he would have if he had just gone on down the road. Every time she hears a car pull up to the Double Nickel, she wonders for an instant if it might be him. Robert, do you remember James? Who? You know, J-Bob. Oh, the O.D. Yeah, I remember. Why do you call him that? Don't you remember his name? Yeah, Susan, I do. But I'm trying real hard to forget it. It's one of the things I do so that I can keep getting up in the morning and going to work each day. Know what I mean? Yeah, I think so. Maybe you need a new line of work. The thoughts cross my mind. Hey, Robert? Yeah, Susan? I don't think I'm really a Susan. I think I'm really a Star. Know what I mean? Yeah, I think so, Star.